and especially for creatives like us, like our hopefully like our audience, like you also want inspiration, and
Right,
like
right.
Walt Disney got his inspiration from just writing and scribbling at tam o'shanters all the time. Like when you
Absolutely.
walk into that place, like I get it. I get why Walt built his empire here and
Yes.
Griffith Park. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You can walk into a place like that, or Musso and Frank, or Dan Tana's, or other places kind of like that, like have this vibe, this old fashioned, but not like, what's the word? An old fashioned vibe that meets the present day.
Faden? Cut to.
Exterior. Interior.
Restaurant?
Bar. Club.
Day.
Night.
Action. Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Restaurant Fiction. My name is Amonis Rose. If this is your first time joining us, what is Restaurant Fiction? Well, we are the podcast, the show, obviously the YouTube show, the channel that reviews fictional restaurants, bars, and clubs in TV and film. Now, this episode, though, we're not doing a fictional restaurant, bar, or club in TV and film. We're actually doing a supper club, a fictional supper club from a novel by one of our favorite culinary storytellers out there. He is a novelist. He is a New York Times best-selling novelist. His name is J. Ryan Stradal. You see, why is J. Ryan on? Well, when it comes to our growth as a creative, as a storyteller, and hopefully as your growth as a creative and storyteller, we want to surround ourselves with people who write or who tell better stories than us, because there are always going to be people out there who do anything we want, but they're just the better version of that. And to surround ourselves with that energy, with that creative oomph, if you will, it just steps up our game. It's like kind of always doing the cliched sports metaphor. You want to play with the best, even if you're not the best yet, because you feed off of that energy. And even when we sit down with Jay Ryan, we feel that. You see, he has written a slew, 3, but I consider that a slew of novels set around fictitious foods, fictitious restaurants, fictitious clubs. The first one, New York Times bestseller, Kitchens of the Great Midwest. The second novel he wrote was Lager Queens of Minnesota. And the third one, which we are talking about, which just got released on paperback, is Saturday Night at the Lakeside Supper Club. I just want to look at my phone to make sure I got those titles right. Yes, the Lager Queen of Minnesota. Anyway, so hopefully it doesn't matter if, Jay Ryan, it doesn't matter if you are from the Midwest or not, best from the Midwest, but there's always something for everyone in all of Jay Ryan's works, especially when it comes to all of his fictional restaurants, bars, and clubs, and in this case, his fictitious supper club. Enjoy our conversation with Jay Ryan. Jay Ryan, guys, gals out there, children out there. You see, I want to tell you about not really, yes, a restaurant, but it's more of a club. Well, it's a combination. It's a supper club.
That's
and
right.
It is in the heart, the belly of the Midwest. That is right. It is along a picturesque lake. And, this place, which is called the Lakeside Supper Club, this is warm. And what I mean by that is, I'm not just talking about a beautiful sunshiny day. I'm talking about it warms your soul up in the dead of winter. And not just that, it renews you. It gives you that zest. It is a supper club. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that there is community. There is really, really community. Now, community, though, Jay Ryan, and to our folks out there, it starts with the food. It starts with the food. Now, this food, no, it's not going to be 3 Michelin star, e-buoy, it's not going to be fast food either. No, it's going to be like prime rib specials, where when you when you cut the prime rib, I mean, you could hear that perfect crust. You could hear that perfect, little breadcrumbs, a little salt and pepper, a little parsley, but you could hear the crunch. For a little amuse bouche, if you will, a little appetizer, that crudité, the pickled vegetables, little dips, but it's perfect al dente. And then you got the walleye. You got the perfect walleye. I mean, the fish of all fish for the Midwest. That, it's a true test that it doesn't matter if the chef is an acclaimed chef or just a line cook that has been brought up throughout the years, but it's in their blood of cooking the most perfect tender walleye to where all of this food is water cooler talk that will last for days. You see, more than just your buzzer beater game winning shot from the previous night's sports game. All right. And you move on. You move on to the drink because obviously, yes, you start the meal with a drink, but then the drinks just flow like a beautiful river throughout the rest of the night. And it starts either with a brandy old fashioned or a brandy Alexander. And maybe you move on to a minty, refreshing grasshopper. That's right. That's right. Where it just, and like I tell people, you don't want things to be really rowdy and chaotic. You just want that nice chill vibe, that nice chill throughout, the evening, especially on a Saturday night. This all comes to the community. This is what makes the Lakeside Supper Club so special is because, like we said in the beginning, community happens here. It is much more than just dinner. It's much more than food is fuel. Kind of like in Western Europe, people dine. This is the affair for the evening, the event, if you will, where, and you get a sense of family. And I'm not just talking about biological family. I'm talking about also chosen family, where obviously you see the bartender and you go, well, they probably started working here well before even working age, obviously drinking age. And then, you maybe take a little glimpse of the line cook or the chef and you're like, that's a sage Yoda right there. Like, that's a real person for advice. Whether you work there or not, he or she, they know a thing or two. So what are we trying to say about the Lakeside Supper Club? Well, if you find yourself around the Lakeside Diner, or the Lakeside Supper Club, it's worth your time. Park your car and step inside. So anyway, that is our little quick, short review of the Lakeside Supper Club from J. Ryan Stradal's book, Saturday Night at the Late Night Supper Club. J. Ryan, how was that? What's your take on that?
Oh, that's great. That's gorgeous. Yeah.
I mean,
I wish it were that easy. Yeah. Yeah. To just, as you put it in your final sentence, find yourself near it. An awful lot of supper clubs in the Midwest where I'm from are very intentionally located in out-of-the-way places. You wouldn't happen across them unless you were on some county road or lost. Yeah. Between major cities somewhere deep in the most unlit reaches of flyover country. I grew up there, and one of the fun things about going to supper clubs to me as a kid was this sense of getting out of town, this sense of going into the countryside or going to a resort or vacation area. So even the process of getting there for me was, what's the word, transformative, or felt like traveling. It felt like from stem to stern, it was more of an experience than going to a typical restaurant by virtue of the fact that these places aren't terribly convenient. Many of them started as speakeasies during Prohibition or have history in that realm, which explains the remote locations to some extent. So sometimes this hard to find restaurant was intentionally hard to find once upon a time, and for obvious economic and reasons of both tradition and commercial persistence have remained in this hard to find location for generations. Others have just positioned themselves to be the best restaurant in the area, the best restaurant for this rural or, at the very least, remote community, a place where outside of church or school, these folks who live nearby can get together. But growing up, supper clubs weren't a third place for me and my family. Like I said, they were a little remote from where I lived. For me, it was Perkins, which was perhaps the primary model for my chain Jorby's in the novel. Now, Perkins is like Denny's or Norm's out here in California, like a 24-hour family restaurant. But Perkins started as a bakery in Ohio before transforming into a chain restaurant. So even when I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, well, more so in the 90s when I was actually hanging out at Perkins on my own accord, my friends, the bakery was still kind of centerpiece. You'd walk into a Jorby's, or a Perkins, and you'd see the rotating pie display and the, glass bakery counter. And yeah, that was a major part of why people historically went to Perkins, was for the desserts. And sometimes people would go there just for pie and coffee. It was that kind of place. And they were, just ridiculously tolerant of a booth full of teenagers just sitting there, just drinking coffee and eating French fries for 3.5 hours.
I'm not gonna lie. I would love a POV of that waiter or waitress who let you, because to have that compassion. Hey, these kids, I'm sure they're in his or her mind is like, not making any money today.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're safe.
Yeah.
They're doing their thing. They're talking about their life.
Yeah.
Let them just have their moment.
And maybe at best, they could also think, hey, I was there once,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they had a place like that themselves once upon a time. Yeah.
Well, Perkins, Jorby's, when we read the novel, our first envision was actually Howard Johnson's.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
Because like Howard Johnson's, and for those people who do not know about Howard Johnson's, and this is just a little quick history, that it started at actually very, very high quality food.
That's
that
right.
The original owner of Howard Johnson's, and getting I believe it was like spaghetti and clams or some kind of like vongole dish-ish. But like at the very beginning of Howard Johnson's, the original owner spared no expense on chef and cooking. And then slowly, as either the son took over or the generations took over, it, like Jorby's, it became a business. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was about bottom line.
Yeah.
It wasn't about quality anymore. And it was just. It was about then board table. It was about, do you have a board seat and shares and profit sharing?
Yeah.
So
that's right. That's right. Yeah, and I did echo that with the trajectory of Jorby's. I did think about Howard Johnson's a lot. Read about Howard Johnson's when I was writing Jorby's, and thinking about what happens to franchises like that, necessarily when they decide to become bottom line oriented instead of customer or service or food oriented. It's a very common evolution in our society, and one can only hope that another business comes along to take the place in the lives of Americans, like Howard Johnson once did when it was first conceived.
But at least with a supper club, you keep a lot of that there. You keep a lot of that. Yeah, because there's something very real and genuine. And one thing that we skip from our review is that when you go, especially to the Lakeside, it's a business, but it's far more personal. And that really means something. And I think it's still, even today, it really means something.
Yeah.
And not just Lakeside, but just a restaurant, just like a community enclave in and of itself that obviously serves food. Was it your time? Yeah. So how did just even specifically, not the actual story of the book, but just the supper club in and of itself? Did it come from Perkins? Did it come from, hey, your misadventures in Minnesota or just traveling? Like, how did the supper club, which is a very Midwest thing, this idea come to you of all the other possibilities of restaurants? Because I'm sure Minnesota has many special mom and pop places, just like
Absolutely.
Wisconsin does, just like Illinois, just like Indiana. Yeah.
Mhm. I worked in a supper club as a teenager, and that really made a strong impression on me. It was the place in our community where you went to for every momentous occasion. So, as such, I had probably only been there 2 or 3 times before I worked there. It was not a place we went very often. It was probably also the most expensive restaurant in the region. So that was a factor. It was a place my family only went to on special occasions. So to get to work there was significant to me on a couple of levels. One was, wow, I get to spend every day in a place that was pretty special, like working at a culinary Disneyland, if you will. The other was that this is a place where customers are going to be happy. This is nobody's second choice. This is a place where people choose to spend days and nights celebrating something they plan to remember. Birthdays, anniversaries, retirements, graduations. It was the kind of restaurant where those things were celebrated. Like, where do you think to go when you have a momentous occasion? This was that place. Just the general vibe of the place was upbeat. It felt like we're here to help these people, to help our customers enjoy this occasion. Let's do the best we can. You'd see conversations break out between tables. Like people with like their chairs were like, I'm at a 6 top and there's a 4 top behind me, and I don't know that guy. Hey, how's it going? And, you see that, and you engender that behavior. You want it to feel like, oh, I've stumbled upon like this family reunion or something. Like I feel there's more of that in a supper club than most other kinds of restaurants. And that's why I wanted to write about it. Like that whole sense of everything I just described made it pretty special to me. And I'd been wanting to write about them ever since. Yeah.
All right. For both, I would love both. How would Lakeside and Jorby's do in Los Angeles, where we're recording now?
Wow. I think Lakeside would have a home here. I mean, there are restaurants similar to it in some ways. I think of like the Smokehouse in Burbank, or the Tam O'Shanter in Atwater Village. Being these kind of old-fashioned places, throwbacks in terms of decor and menu, but also a more, not merely nostalgic, full bars, fairly elevated versions of American cuisine as such, but still comfort food in terms of preparation and portions, like not minimalist or postmodern. Yeah, but better quality than a lot of the chains, I'd say. Yeah, like comparably, probably. I mean, if you want a steak, for example, like you'd will certainly get a better steak at Tam O'Shanter than at Outback, I'd venture to guess. And
and plus, I think also just going on your Tam O'Shanter,
yeah,
and especially for creatives like us, like our hopefully like our audience, like you also want inspiration,
right,
and
right.
Walt Disney got his inspiration from just writing and scribbling at Tam O'Shanters all the time.
Absolutely.
Like when you walk into that place, like I get it. I get why Walt built his empire here and Griffith Park. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You can walk into a place like that, or Musso and Frank, or Dan Tana's, or other places kind of like that. Like have this vibe, this old fashioned, but not like what's the word? An old fashioned vibe that meets the present day.
You only can pick one.
Yeah.
You can either inherit the Lakeside, or inherit Jorby's empire.
Oh my God.
Which one are you choosing? The creator of both, by the way. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm talking to
wow.
the creator of both, but you can only inherit one. Yeah.
Well, for me, I would pick I'm sorry. I would not pick Jorby's because I based Ned on myself largely, and Ned was so ill-suited for it, and I felt I would be ill-suited for it too. I would pick the restaurant. I would leave the millions of dollars on the table and take the struggling family-owned restaurant in the woods just because I think I could handle it. And also, I would enjoy being part of the community. I love how Ned became the bartender at this restaurant because he always did enjoy talking to people. It was his favorite part about his job. He just found himself like really comfortable with the anonymity and the role in society that he got to play. And I thought, oh, I could, maybe some part of me thinks I could do that.
Well, I mean, before our next question, you hit on something. I mean, with Ned and with yourself, I mean, it is about like relationships. I think we're in a capitalistic society where, I mean, it's all about, getting ahead, the Jorby's lifestyle, money, 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 where really, honestly, relationships are, for at least us, a restaurant fiction, are a lot more meaningful and connection.
Yeah.
And I think that was with Ned. I think that was his POV as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he also remembered the days when Jorby's was a restaurant that served society in that way, where it was a really desired third space for people and not, a fallback option, a consolation prize for hungry people who forgot to make a reservation or who made an impulsive choice to go out on a Friday night and find Jorby's as the only alternative that will seat them.
If you were to receive advice from either your 18-year-old self or your 90-year-old self, who are you choosing?
18 or 9?
90. And
90.
And your 90 is coherent, lucid, healthy.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'd go with 90 in a minute. Yeah. Yeah, my 18-year-old self. Wow. An interesting person, but no one I would take advice from. Yeah.
And what is your 90-year-old self telling you?
Oh, boy.
What advice is he giving you?
Probably calm down. Try to enjoy life a bit more. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just slow down. That's one of the things having a toddler helps with. I mean, they're slow. They take in the world more deliberately. I mean, they're not slow in the sense of like, they're certainly not sluggish, but their processing speed is what it is because so much of their input is fabulous to them and novel. Just today, I had to drive around the block to see a dump truck a second time. Like he saw this glimpsed a dump truck out of the corner of his eye and said, Daddy, like, let's drive around it again. Let's go see it again. And I had to do a U-turn in someone's driveway and pull up and follow this dump truck and pass it again just so he could continue drinking it in. Like just getting this taster of this dump truck out of the corner of his eye was so supremely dissatisfying to him that he demanded of the full course. Like, we got to go back and drive slowly past this dump truck so I can really drink in the experience of seeing it. I think, well, that's pretty cool. I mean, most of the time I drive by vehicles of all kinds and give them nary a notice. Like, don't stop and look at any detail about them. And he'll beg me to say, not only drive by it again, but what does that say on the side? What is that man doing? What's inside there? And you find yourself taking apart an experience of your day in a deliberate fashion that it's almost meditative.
We're going to give you a shout out regardless, but do you want to give shout outs to any, to Lakeside, to any of your past work, or to any blogs? Like, this is the time to give shout outs. You can do it right here to the camera. You can do it to me. Yeah.
Two of the writers in my writing group here in LA have books that came out this year. My friend Sarah Tomlinson's excellent book, The Last Days of the Midnight Ramblers, an oral history of a rock band told from the point of view of its ghostwriter is wonderful. Came out in February. And my friend Sarah Langen's book, A Better World, about a dystopian company town, really darkly humorous, very Black Mirror-esque, also came out in April. And I recommend both of those books highly. These women are in a writing group with me, and Meg Howery and Chris Terry as well. We exchange manuscripts in progress. So I've been reading each of those two books for years, and it's really wonderful to see them out in the world.
Jay Ryan, thank you so much. Not gonna lie, second time, even better than the first, even though the first time you were on was pretty sensational as well. All right, for everyone who wants to get to know more about Jay Ryan and where he's at, he publishes his book tour on his Instagram. Also, if you want to learn all about the authors that he gave a shout out to, it is also on his Instagram. He is out there, and we are just crossing our fingers for his next novel. Hopefully it'll deal with a fictional restaurant, bar, and club. And if not, though, you're welcome back anytime. I mean, it's my podcast, so even if we don't talk about a fictional restaurant, bar, and club, hey, you're a great guest. I mean, hey, it's my podcast. Like I said, you found us a Restaurant Fiction. Obviously, go back to our archives for our first little foray into our interview with Jay Ryan Stradal. It is an amazing one where we talk more about kitchens of the Great Midwest and also lager queens of Minnesota, and many, many other episodes. My name is Monis Rose, and remember, everyone, nothing makes sense, and nothing ever does.